A lot of us remember where we were October 7th, a year ago. What do you remember about that day?
I remember I woke up and it was a Sabbath morning, but it also was on the cusp of one of the key Jewish holidays, Simchat Torah, the holiday that celebrates the end and the beginning of the annual cycle of reading the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and just began to get some social media from friends in Israel. Where first you're kind of, this can't be right, this is not really happening in this way, this must be some kind of mistake.
"1,200 people that day. 250 hostages were taken. And a year later, 100 people are still being held hostage.
We hope. I mean, many of them
Hopefully,
are probably dead, yeah.
some of them alive.
Yeah.
How frustrating is that for you?
I think it's immensely frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating for so many people, not least of which the family members who still have loved ones there that almost a year hence, they're still there languishing in captivity. I think everybody recognizes the need to bring the hostages home and to do virtually anything that needs to be done to make that happen.
A year ago when we spoke, you told me that there were members of your congregation who were afraid to wear anything that identified them as Jewish. Is that still the case?
You know, it's interesting, but I'm finding much more the other kind of experience, which is that people are doubling down on their Jewish identity, that they're wearing Stars of David, that they're wearing medallions that talk about returning the hostages.
Anti-Semitism is still alive and well. Over the last year, there still has been a dramatic rise. The Anti-Defamation League reported Washington State had the 15th highest number of incidents in the nation, nearly 200 last year. Do you still feel the undercurrents of that?
Jews here in the Pacific Northwest feel beleaguered and kind of under attack from multiple places, from at least both ends of the spectrum, in ways that perhaps are not as evident in other communities.
Last year, you told me that different groups of the community that you thought had been very supportive and allies to the Jewish community didn't show up for you.
Or were hypercritical.
A year later, do you still feel that way?
Well, I still feel that way, but I have more clarity.
Who did show up for you and who didn't?
Amongst many others, members of the Black church community have really stood with us pretty silently. I think one of the most heartbreaking disconnects, in some ways it's understandable, in some ways it's not, is with the Muslim community. I think there are folks within that community, and it's heartbreaking to say, who have trafficked in messaging that goes beyond criticism of Israel, but really veers into contributions to an anti-Semitic climate in this country. And that's painfully ironic and tragic on so many levels.
You would agree that some of the frustration around this war has been the death toll among Palestinians.
Of course.
The health ministry there reports some 40,000 deaths. The Lancet journal says the number could be as high as 180,000 plus because of disease and living conditions. So how do you reconcile the impact of this last year on the Palestinian people?
I don't know if reconcile is the right word. It's a horrific tragedy what has happened to the Palestinian people. I blame Hamas for self-inflicting, within the spirit of martyrdom, this tragedy upon their own people. And from the attack through how they are conducting the war in tunnels, using their own people as human shields, deliberately sacrificing a generation that they feel is an acceptable sacrifice if decades down the road it helps them to achieve their goal of eradicating Israel and wiping it out of all of its Jews.
Clearly, we are at a different place in this war than we were a year ago. When you look at what's happening in the north, is this an expansion of the war? Are we already there?
People who have seen this as one giant war, I think, are most accurate. Israel cannot continue and survive when the northern third of its country is uninhabitable. But I think looming in the background, and I think that it is a threat not only to Israel, but in many ways Israel is on the front lines of a much larger conflict with Iran, and by extension, in some ways, Russia and North Korea.
If they're able to reach a ceasefire, if we can see an end to this war, what kind of future do you see in Israel now?
I hope and pray for a future in Israel where they can transcend some of the significant civil divides within their country, similar to the civil divides within our country. That they can come together around the common principles and common identities they share, and that those that remain on the extremes will be so marginalized and so isolated that they will be disempowered to inflict the kind of harm and damage that they've been inflicting.
You are just one person, and I'm wondering what has been the most difficult for you over the past year, and how do you stay hopeful and optimistic?
I think the hardest thing has been to compartmentalize my own feelings of anxiety, threat, pain, loss, lament, grief, mourning, from the role that I want to play and the impact I want to have within my community and beyond my community. In terms of optimism, hope is really what I feel more, because hope is inevitable. That sense of hope helps us to endure the tragedy. That sense of tragedy gives us perspective about the value and the preciousness of the hope.